Hello, I'm Rick and this is the Nike Streakfly 2. This is built as a shoe for the mile to 10k distances, and if you're looking to shave seconds off your park run or you're a very dedicated track athlete, I think this shoe could really appeal. A few stats about this shoe. It's 165 pounds, it weighs in at 145 grams, so it's extremely lightweight, and has a 4mm heel to toe drop. It's also built on the last of a track spike, so you feel like you're actually running in a track spike, although you don't actually have the spikes that you would do on a track spike. So I want to talk a little bit about the evolution of the Nike Zoom Streak range, because it has been going for a long time. It started off with shoes that looked a bit more like this. This is a Nike Zoom Streak 7, probably from around 2020, I would say. And these shoes really had their heyday in around 2016, 2017. That's when people like Eliud Kipchoge were wearing the shoe and winning marathons in it. It's extremely responsive, wonderful racing flat. If I could just run in one road shoe for the rest of my life, it would actually be this shoe. I've done some of my best running in it. You can do everything from like tempo runs to race day. You can even do long runs in it actually. And because it wasn't a carbon plated shoe, you could get it for about 70 or 80 quid. So it was a real like hidden gem, this shoe. Unfortunately, they discontinued doing shoes like this, so I was like, this is a nightmare. And when the Streakfly 1 came in, I was excited and thought, this hopefully will be a kind of continuation of the Zoom Streak range, but it wasn't quite the same thing. It had a higher stack height, it was quite a squidgy running experience, so a lot of people, like myself, were slightly underwhelmed. But the Streakfly 2 is a different proposition entirely. It's built on the last of a track spike, so it feels like a track spike when you're running in it. And it's 145 grams, which is about a 30 gram deduction in weight on the Streakfly 1. And it puts it much more in the range of track spikes and a lot lighter than classic super shoes, which are normally coming in around the 200 gram range. So it's an amazing experience to put on your foot because you almost feel like you're not wearing anything at all. The other biggest change in it is a full length fly plate, a carbon plate running the length of the shoe, and that gives you a real sense of propulsion. I took this shoe for a few sessions at a local track, and my running creds, just because I think that helps to put this shoe in context. I've run 2:58 for the marathon, 1:22 for the half, high 36s for 10k, and low 18s for 5k. And I think those kind of times for a male runner are probably where you want to be looking at, or quicker for a shoe like this, just because purely this is a shoe that's for outright speed and it's really marginal gains territory with a shoe like this. If you're more of a casual runner, you're just getting into running, I don't believe that you need to go for a shoe like the Streakfly. There are other ways where you can be getting bigger gains without having to shell out for a shoe like this. However, I was extremely impressed taking this shoe on the track. I did some minute reps at quite a high pace, and then I did some longer stuff like 3 lots of 6-minute reps just to kind of more replicate what I might be running for the mile, and actually on both workouts perform really well. You get a great sense of propulsion from the fly plate underneath, particularly when running at quicker tempos, and it's also a lot more comfortable than a classic track spike. So if you're doing a lot of these kind of track sessions or you're doing kind of high pace stuff on the road, you don't want to use a track spike. Obviously you can't use a track spike on the road. A shoe like this that looks like a road shoe, at least on the forefoot there, but gives you some of the same propulsion of a track spike, that's where this shoe comes into its own. However, I would say that with a shoe like this, even more so than with a traditional kind of super shoe, you do need to transition slowly. After my first track session I felt a little bit of pain on the joint of my big toe, and it lasted a few days. I didn't have that second time round. I think actually I did adapt a little bit to the shoe, but if you're new to carbon plated shoes or you're new to track running, then you'd have to be very careful just jumping into the Streakfly, because I think that actually could be a fast track to injury. In some ways, the Streakfly 2 owes a lot to a really famous Nike spike called the Dragonfly, which you might have seen on the feet of people at the Olympics and the World Championships. It's a very popular elite level track spike. And actually in terms of weight, they're pretty similar. The Dragonfly's a tiny bit lighter, as you would expect, it's out and out flat, but they actually feel pretty similar on your feet. So if you are used to running in spikes, particularly ones with a kind of carbon plate like this one, actually your transition to a shoe like this will be relatively seamless. But I think that's how you need to start thinking about this shoe. It's not like a traditional road shoe. It's actually much closer to a kind of hybrid shoe that's part track spike and part sort of ultra light road racer. So let's have a look at this shoe. So there's a carbon plate, full length carbon plate they call a fly plate there. It's got the Zoom X foam, which is Nike's most responsive foam, and it's a very comfortable running experience. I have to say the lacing system up the front is great. You can get a nice lockdown feel without it kind of putting too much pressure on the top of your foot. As you can see, it's almost translucent, this shoe. It couldn't be more stripped down and lightweight. You'd worry about it, I think, a little in bad weather. So if it was like, if you were out running on the road and it started to bucket it down, I don't think the kind of waterproof qualities of a shoe like this are very good. Obviously, it's not made for those kind of things, but it's worth bearing in mind. It's not a shoe that I feel could last. It's not particularly rugged, I would say. It's a shoe you really need to look after. You know, you want to kind of wrap it up in cotton wool, and then just for your PB efforts or your very best, most important track sessions, or even marathon sessions where you're doing like that faster stuff, you might consider bringing this shoe out. But I don't think it's the kind of thing where you're going to be able to put in big miles in either. So it's a shoe that needs a lot of care and attention, and not to be treated too harshly. The sizing of the shoe is great. It fits true to size. It provides a decent amount of roominess. I've got a relatively narrow foot. I think if you had a very wide foot, as you probably would in lots of track spikes, you might struggle. Track spikes are traditionally quite narrow, and this is no different. It has that kind of feel for it. So if you've got a narrow foot, you're fine. I think if you've got a medium size, like sort of width foot, you'd be fine as well. But if you had a very wide foot, you might consider either going up half a size, or this actually might not be the shoe for you. Who is this shoe for? Well, I think given the cost of this shoe, £165, it's really for your dedicated track athlete, someone who's running track Tuesday, maybe Thursday, even on Saturday during the week, someone who's looking to shave seconds off their 5,000 metre or 10,000 metre PB. Obviously, that could include Parkrun, which broadens things out a bit. So if you're someone who's really looking to shave a few seconds off your Parkrun PB, you've been running Parkrun a lot, and you want a shoe that can just kick you to the next level, then I think the Streakfly 2 is a fine bet for that. And I think anyone who is a specialist in shorter distances, so if you were, for instance, trying to tackle a mile, it's that kind of thing where I think this shoe is needed. If you didn't have a super shoe, for instance, and you were just like, look, I need a super shoe for variety of things, half marathons, etc., I don't think this is a shoe for that, because essentially super shoes can do a very, very good job at 5k, 10k, half marathons and marathons, as we all know. This shoe is going to come into its own for kind of mile to 10k. It might even be better than something like a Vaporfly over those distances. But if you were just to get one, I think it's quite a hard case of making a case for this shoe, because it's so specialist, and actually a lot of people don't need to go to this kind of marginal gains end of the shoe buying spectrum to get where they want to go in running. So overall, I think this is a genuinely exciting new shoe on offer. I think it brings something different. It's super lightweight. As I said, it's about 50 grams lighter than lots of the super shoes out there. It has got a specific purpose. Having said that, I would definitely run this shoe again. If I was targeting shaving a few seconds off a 5k PB, which I would like to do this year, then I would definitely wear this shoe. If I was targeting the mile, trying to run your best mile, which I think is a great challenge for lots of runners, regardless of how fast you want to run that mile, this would be a fantastic shoe for that. Have a real think about what your goals are, the kind of runner you are, the kind of speed you're doing, and if all those things line up, then the Streakfly 2 is a fantastic option.